All right, everyone, now you've got the news of the day and probably of the whole year, which is that Anthony Kennedy will be retiring. He's going to leave the Supreme Court. There was talk of this for, I think, a couple of years. It's been a while. He's older. He doesn't want to get senile and make mistakes while being a Supreme Court justice. He's bowing out with dignity. And he is considered generally dignified. Some people are trying to smear him now from the left. It's like, that's a terrible idea. It is a terrible idea to set yourself up as, well, fuck Anthony Kennedy for retiring. Dude, he's old. He wants to be able to enjoy a few years of, I guess, eating pineapples with Obama in Hawaii or something. You can't fault a person who is already old for wanting to retire. Normal people retire. Not millennials, but, traditionally, he's not a millennial. He's, I think he's from silent generation, practically. He's an old man. It's like Ginsburg. Ginsburg is more the type that will hold on until the very end. Like, she'll be on life support and she'll still be making decisions. They will literally wheel her in with her oxygen tank or an iron lung or renal, machines and stuff like that. They'll do whatever that they have to do. She'll pay millions just to stay there and be a stick up Donald Trump's ass. Quite clearly, she's also getting senile. Anthony Kennedy, by all means, is a relatively balanced sort of centrist figure within the court. Has been the median vote more times than not. Sort of like a Roberts. He's considered respectable. Even people on the left, he stands up for gay rights and things like that. He's not really with giving the government the ability to tell women they can't choose. I have respect for him. He seems like maybe the most likable person on the court. I wish it was Ginsburg retiring or Clarence Thomas or something like that. Now, unfortunately, it's Kennedy leaving. The left is afraid. They're afraid because they're like, oh no, it's going to be Trump's Supreme Court now. Well, what did you expect? What, because he's Trump, he's not allowed to appoint justices? He has to wait until after 2024 or whatever, and then, the Democrats magically get 5 justices at once? But one thing I wanted to address. Some people are claiming that he's going to put like a Scalia in his place, that the court will be dragged far right. I think that's unlikely, and I'll tell you why. At this point, Trump can't be obstructed by the Democrats. He has control of the House and Senate. But he will be obstructed by a handful of Republicans that aren't completely on board with him if he tries to do that, because they will get so nervous. They'll be like, hey, you're going to cause Democratic turnout in the midterms or in 2020, whenever, to skyrocket. Because you're poking the hornet's nest if you try to replace someone like Anthony Kennedy with like Rick Santorum look-alike or something. It's not going to happen. They won't vote for him. They won't confirm. Trump, meanwhile, is intelligent enough to know this, and probably won't try to do so because he doesn't want to set up a fight with his own party at a really extremely critical time within his tenure as president. Because he doesn't want that kind of struggle. He wants peace within the Republican Party, so he has a mandate as the Republican red wave comes in to do what he wants to do, get his wall funding, set things up with Korea. He wants to do the Trump thing. A lot of money, a lot of deregulation, probably more tax breaks, very popular, before 2020. That's what he wants to do. That's what he has a mandate to do. He doesn't have a mandate in Trump. People, stop pretending that Donald Trump is a Bible-thumping, machine-gun-toting Tea Partier. He is a Manhattan socialite that decided to show up at CPAC instead of going to the Democratic Party's convention. That's fundamentally that's what he is. He's from the big city. He's a Manhattan billionaire who has a gold-covered fucking toilet. He's not living in a trailer. He calls Camp David rustic. Okay, he's not going to stack the court with a Scalia lookalike. The reason why Gorsuch got there is because he was an appropriate replacement for a justice who was already far right. Scalia was far right. He was the furthest right justice in a generation. So he replaced him with someone comparable to play up to the base. Now he has to deal with the fact that centrists are the ones that are primarily concerned right now with regards to Kennedy. They don't want someone who's essentially leans a bit to the right to be replaced by someone who's going to make Scalia look like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They don't want that to happen, and I don't think it will. That being said, Trump will probably get to replace Ginsburg too before 2020. Can we be honest with regards to age and senescence and the fact that Ginsburg may already be showing signs of early stage Alzheimer's? Yeah, it may become impossible for her to continue up in that post. She may be forced to resign. The other justices may stage an intervention at some point and say, look, yeah, we don't like the fact that you're probably going to get replaced by someone like Anthony Kennedy or Justice Roberts either, because, it will drag the court somewhat to the right. But, what else are we supposed to do? We can't hold off forever. People aren't immortal. Although it wouldn't put it past her to be like, she goes to the FDA tomorrow and she's like, I need wonder drugs to keep me alive for the next like 6 years. Can you do this? You know, give me a brain transplant. Who fucking cares? I wouldn't be surprised if crazier things have happened within politics. But the Democrats are right to be afraid. It's like, I think it was Chris Matthews comes out and said, they better, obstruct, they better obstruct any Trump appointment, otherwise there'll be hell to pay. You can't. You don't have the ability to obstruct him. He can. The reason why Garland is different from this situation, fairly close to the midterms. It's not a full election, presidential. It's a midterm, number one. Now, so it doesn't really count. Number two, he has the control of the House and Senate, but he can't stack the court with someone who's like Scalia. It's not going to happen because it wouldn't even represent what Trump is about. Trump is not far right. This idea, there's an article here, second archived link in the description. They're like, Anthony Kennedy could have been remembered as a principled conservative, basically a Bushite or something. But now, because he's resigning, he is enabling Donald Trump's evil, racist, anti-woman agenda. You are having a mental breakdown over someone choosing to retire because they are old. Anthony Kennedy was never a particularly vicious voice on the Supreme Court, echoing some crazy partisan line. He's not a Kagan. He's not a Clarence Thomas. Justice Kennedy has by all means been a relatively sane voice on the court, along with a few other people. And usually you have like 2 or 3 partisans on either side, and then a couple of people basically deliver the swing vote. And he's probably going to be replaced by someone who is center-right like he is. It's not going to be some vicious, homophobic, women back in the kitchen, and, it's okay if you break equal protection because I was in the Klan once. That's not the sort of person that Trump is going to nominate for that position. It'll be interesting to see who it is. I'm sure there will essentially be a list. It'll probably go out beforehand. Trump will have 4 or 5 people. He'll say, well, this is my short list. And it'll be people who are basically center-right. It'll be people who are acceptable replacements. There might be one like far-righter on there just to appease the Republican core base. Be like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I could put this person in. It would be a good strategy. It'd be pure Trump. The list will contain a couple of people who are like Rick Santorum. That way, all of the other people will seem sane by comparison, and even a few Democrats might vote to confirm them. It could happen. If the person is tolerably close to Kennedy in their overall ideology. But look when Ginsburg kicks off, which will happen before 2024 certainly, and I expect Trump to have 2 terms. Probably Clarence Thomas at some point within. He might get 5 Supreme Court justices total. You do realize that, right? But this is because people keep putting people who are elderly on the Supreme Court. It's like, yeah, this 80-year-old is, we're going to replace that 80-year-old with someone who's really young. They're only 73. They're the age of Hillary Clinton. And people keep doing this time after time. You should replace them with people who are young. Like Gorsuch, I think, is on the youngish side. Roberts, I think, was youngish when he was put in there. Kagan, I think, wasn't she even not quite 50 yet. So you're getting a little bit of new blood on the Supreme Court. The problem is, of course, to get on the Supreme Court to be viable for confirmation, you have to have an established career within the legal system. So you had to have done a lot of stuff and be significant. Well, most people, do they peak out like when they're in their 20s? No, they continue working through their life. By the time they're in their 40s or 50s, maybe they've established themselves more. Typically, maybe 60 or something. But the Democrats are currently, this was the funniest part, they're blaming Jill Stein for this. And the reason why is they're trying to turn lemons into lemonade right now by going after third parties and saying, look, you split the vote and you caused this. Clinton would have gotten 2 justices by now. Essentially, in other words, Anthony Kennedy would have been replaced with a Ginsburg alike. You would have had a Merrick Garland or someone comparable to it, and then someone even further left. Clinton would have stacked the Supreme Court, I guarantee it. Because she's like, well, I'm old now. I'm never going to run for re-election for anything else. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to give the party what it wants. I'm going to put people who make Bernie Sanders blush on the Supreme Court. Ha ha ha. It'll be my legacy for the next 30 years. That's what she would have done. Trump has to tread more carefully because he actually faces some opposition within his own party. And you only control the House and the Senate by, like a vote. It'll be better after the midterms. By the way, to the Democrats, go ahead and obstruct him. Do everything you can to keep him from appointing a justice now until after the midterms when he gains, 3 or 4 more senators, all of which will be Trump populists. He'll steamroll you, and then he'll play it up to the party and say, look, the Democrats, they don't even want a functioning Supreme Court. Shame on them. And drive up turnout for the Republicans. You'll be wiped off the face of the earth. Definitely won't take the House. Chris Matthews is wrong, by the way. But it's funny to see all the salty tears because what did you think? What did you think? The Supreme Court justices are supposed to continue working even though they're like, Kennedy's probably like, hey, I'm tired. I'm old. Yeah, I might be in great health because Supreme Court justices typically have abnormally long lifespans. But yeah, at some point, I want to hang out and do other stuff. I'm going to build an arcade in my home and play Pac-Man all day, like in the good old days. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to work forever until he's, work and die with his boots on, so to speak. Not everyone's built for that sort of mentality. Some people want to relax when they're older. They're like, yeah, I've got the gout and, I've got brain fog. Sometimes I forget to put my pants on under my robe. And it's, come on, let the dude have some fucking dignity. You don't need to even turn it into a political issue. Why don't you wait and see who Trump actually puts in the position? Do you think it's going to be like Scalia, or do you think he's probably going to honor the legacy of Anthony Kennedy by dealing with a center-right figure? He's going to do the latter because he's sane. And when that happens, the Democrats will look dumb. Trump can score way more points by putting in someone who's like Anthony Kennedy than he could by putting someone far-right in there. You put in a far-righter, yeah, the evangelicals who overwhelmingly support you will vote in the midterms for Republicans. But it's not going to help grow the coalition with centrists or anything. You put in an acceptable replacement, you win huge dividends over time. Make it someone younger, too. Like someone under 60, preferably, so that they'll be there for a couple of decades, and it'll be extra funny. It's going to be hilarious to see what happens. And the meltdown, it's pretty funny because it was predictable. That's about all. Peace out.